This is a 2002 Astro with four-wheel drive. I just swapped the transfer case. You have 5 bolts that hold it to the transmission. When you separate this thing, there's going to be about 4 or 5 ounces of transmission oil that leak out. So you're going to want to have a pan to catch that. You've got an vent on the top. You got a pair of pliers to pop that off. You've got 4 sensors that have to come off. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 of them are a little tab that you have to lift out, and the one on the bottom is a thing that you have to push in. These are the tools I use. I use a bungee cord to hold up the drive shaft. I never took it out, so it never hit the ground. Hammer just for whacking stuff. Screwdriver. I use that impact wrench for only like 4 bolts on the drive shaft. But you need a 15mm socket. You need an 18mm socket, a 10mm, and then you need an 8mm wrench. I use the 15mm wrench to tighten the bolts on the to the transmission. The 5 bolts. So going under the car, we have this light going. Under the car, you got the rear drive shaft has 4 8mm bolts at the universal. You have to put the car in neutral and turn it and then put it back in park to get that. So if you got somebody helping you, they can do that for you. I am doing this by myself. You got to climb up and down. This connection here, this slips out. No oil comes out. A little bit drips out, but the oil level is, you can see at the oil level with this bolt here, so it's actually lower. So the oil doesn't come gushing out here. You might get a couple drops. When you separate the transmission, you will get oil. A fair amount, enough to have a bucket. You have to remove the transmission mount, and that's a chore, but I'll tell you how to do it. You take off these 2 nuts at the bottom, and then you're going to put a jack under this thing and push it up until push the transfer case up until it hits the floor, where it won't go up anymore. Then you're going to take out. Then you'll have enough room to get away from this bracket. See this piece of the frame right here? You'll have enough room to get into these bolts, and these bolts are long, so when they come down, they would bind. They wouldn't bind, but you're never going to get a ratchet in there. So you have to lift this up, and then you take out the top bolts, and I use the ratchet for that. And then this thing barely comes out. You pry it back this way, and the only way you're able to get it out is because the thing is rubber and it will bend. And so you kind of pry it out and then pop the bottom bolts where they come out. So it does come out, and you got to take it out. Okay, so this is the connector down here. This is the one you have to depress to get it to pop off, and these other ones you just pry that edge up. You can see the little thing right there. You pry that up to get that off. Okay, so the front drive shaft is it's 4 10mm bolts, and they have a pattern to them. There's like the spacing is closer one way than further the other way, so you got to get it right when you put it back together, or else it's not going to go back together. This end of the front drive shaft, it's the splines. I put a screwdriver in here and pried, and then I tapped it with a hammer right here, and that slid off, so the drive shaft comes right out, and you put that on the floor. The rear drive shaft, because it's got this big shiny spot out here that I didn't want it to touch the floor and get all dirty, so I kept the drive shaft hanging up against the bottom of the car the whole time. This is the support. Here, let me see if I get the light right place. Yeah, these are 18mm here. The bolts, you can see the nut right there. That's 15mm. There's 5 bolts that hold the transmission to the thing, and there's one in here. There's one at the bottom. So when the transmission mount is out, I think I can even show it to you. It's right up in there. So when the transmission mount is out, you have to go after that one on the bottom, and that's the hardest one to get. So that's probably the one you should get first. There's a other stuff. There's a vent line on top of here, right there. You got to undo, and then you got the other electrical connector. So you got to be prepared for oil spilling when you split the cases. That's about it. You just the drive shafts, motor mount's the transmission mount's got to come out. So you have to just go over that again so you get this right. You take these two off the bottom, jack the transmission up, take the top bolts out, wrestle the transmission mount out, go after the bottom 15 millimeter bolt of the 5 that holds the thing on, then take the others, get all your stuff disconnected. I had a floor jack under here, keyed into here, and then a piece of wood here at this flat spot, and that was a balance point toward the back a little bit. And then the jack, the thing weighs about 80 pounds. I took it down by myself. Put the whole thing back in by myself as well. There's a gasket in there between the two. Mine stuck to the transmission, which was good. And I think that's about it. All right, good luck.